Some questions once again to y'all, Mr. President.
Of course, I'll yield, Mr. President.
Deja vu again. Senator Hughes, there's some real issues that I have with this bill, and it affects that I will have in hiring, that this bill will have in hiring, to make sure we hire the best and the brightest in our state government. I think there's some issues here that we need to discuss, because your definition of diversity, equity, inclusion office worries me. But it doesn't just worry me because of how you've demonized the word diversity, equity, and inclusion, those words. It worries me because this bill is written so broad, so very, very broad. This bill was drafted to address DEI offices within governments, just as the legislature did address DEI offices in colleges, campuses last session, correct?
I believe it's in the same
framework, same principle, same purpose. Is that correct?
I believe they are of a piece. Yes, sir.
You agree with me on that?
I don't know about the details, but they're certainly the same concept. Yes, sir.
Same concept, yeah. So, Senator, your bill mentions that DEI initiatives in Texas jeopardizes equity. That's what your bill says. It jeopardizes equity. But the reality is that discrimination still exists. As you and Senator West just had a conversation, y'all agree, and we cannot deny that. I'm going to ask you again, we all agree on that, right? That discrimination still exists?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, brother.
On many bases, it does.
It does, whether we like it or not. There are many state employees who are discriminated against, but their stories never go told. You know that? There's a lot of discrimination in employment in the state and in other entities, but their stories never go told. What exactly, Senator Hughes, what exactly about diversity, equity, and inclusion do you have an issue with or deems it so divisive? Can you answer that question?
Well, thank you, Senator. And as you know, the way it's defined in the bill, it's influencing, I'm on page 1, line 35, influencing hiring or employment practices or workforce composition at the entity with respect to race, sex, color, or ethnicity, other than through the use of a colorblind, race-neutral, and sex-neutral hiring process in accordance with any applicable state and federal law. So the point is...
I heard you say that.
Oh, okay.
And you read that right out of your bill, correct?
I hope I read that accurately.
But you also still believe that discrimination still occurs in the workforce, right?
Well,
I heard you read that out of your bill, but you also agreed that you got to believe, and you still know, that discrimination still occurs in workplaces.
Senator, we're dealing with humans, fallen humans like the rest of us, and of course, there's going to be problems, there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be bad treatment anywhere we deal with people. That's right.
Okay, so we're on the same page. But this bill would prohibit government entities from establishing a DEI office. Is that correct?
A DEI office as defined using these terms. That's right.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But we also agree, and we believe, and we understand that discrimination still occurs in the workplace, right?
Senator, it can occur everywhere. It can occur anywhere. And that's, as you know, I would just say, Senator, let me finish.
We're in agreement.
Let me finish.
We're not going to split words. We're in agreement on everything we just said.
It exists, and there is a recourse. As you know, there are federal and state discrimination lawsuits. There is a recourse when discrimination takes place. But please go ahead.
So, in this DEI office that you don't want to exist, you don't want any employees there as well, right?
That's right.
That's correct.
If the job is to promote
or
treating people differently based on race, we don't want them there. You're right.
That's right. And nor do you want the state contracting with a third party to operate a DEI office. Is that correct?
That's right.
Based on your bill, correct?
That's right.
The bill includes exceptions for DEI initiatives required by federal law, though, right? Based on your bill.
Senator, I would say what it says is if there are courses that are programs that are required by federal law, and there's some pretty tight restrictions on those, that's the exception.
And that would be my next question. Can you clarify the federal requirements that you will allow
Senator, for example,
to have in Texas entities?
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I may have cut you off, so I apologize to you.
That's all right. Thank you so much. And so those exceptions you're talking about, as you can see, for example, on line 1-54, or let's go up to line 50, conducting trainings, programs, or activities designed or implemented in reference to race, sex, color, ethnicity, gender, identity, other than trainings, programs, or activities developed by an attorney, approved in writing by the Attorney General, and conducted for the sole purpose of ensuring compliance with any applicable court order or state or federal law. So if I can take those in turn, so a court order could be a situation where there's some kind of a court order in place, and that's still binding on the state. Of course, we want to comply with anything like that. Also, if we think about what we're trying to get to, which is a colorblind, race-neutral society, there could be trainings on that where somebody comes in and says to all of our employees, so moving forward, we're going to be colorblind, we're going to be race neutral, we're not going to treat people based on their race, their sex, their ethnicity. So let me be clear. A proposal like that, a presentation like that, it would be talking about these topics, but clearly that's one of the exceptions under the bill if it's approved by the Attorney General and tightly controlled and presented by an attorney. That's the idea, if that's helpful.
That's the federal requirements that you're going to accept, correct?
I hope that's helpful. Okay. Yes, sir.
You gave him a little too much to just answer, say this is the federal. I got it. So let me ask you this, and I want you to dig deep for this one. What current evidence shows that government entities are only hiring based off of DEI initiatives and not qualifications?
Senator, I don't think anyone is alleging that hiring is being done only based on DEI. We do know that, for example, at the Texas Department of Transportation, in the right-of-way department, I'm answering your question.
So, short answer, you don't have any evidence that they're only hiring off of DEI.
No one said they're hiring. No one said they're hiring only based on DEI. I don't think we're saying that a little racism is okay.
No evidence, correct?
I'm sorry?
So if no one's saying it, then we have no evidence of that, correct?
Not that that's the only basis, but it is a basis. But go ahead.
So if no one's saying it, that's the only basis, then no one's saying it then, right? It's not being said. There is no evidence.
That is the only basis for an agency. You're correct. That's right.
That's no evidence. So there's no evidence.
That it is the only basis.
Are we saying the same thing?
I think we are.
Okay.
I think we are.
So that's that they're only hiring on DEI. There's no evidence of that, is there?
I don't believe anyone's alleged that. No, sir.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you for admitting that. I appreciate that. How does this bill distinguish between prohibiting DEI activities and permissible equal opportunities or anti-discrimination efforts?
Senator, under this bill, and if you look at the section repealing parts of the labor code, the attempt is to go through all of our agency practices and make sure that people are being treated the same based on the color of their skin, based on their sex, based on their ethnicity. And so that would apply across the board with these agency operations. That's the goal.
Okay. Well, with that said, subsection C of your DEI office definition says that DEI offices means an office, division, or other unit of the government entity established for the purpose of promoting policies and procedures implemented in reference to race, sex, or ethnicity. Senator, I'm assuming you're aware that historical underutilized businesses or hub statutes, you know what those are, right?
Like in state contracting and government contracting? Yes, sir. I'm generally, I know there's 2 or 3 places in the statute where we have those.
So understanding subsection C of your definition, this is on your definition now, a hub coordination office within an agency exclusively promotes policies or procedures implemented in reference to race, sex. They would therefore be a DEI office, correct?
Senator, the context of this bill...
Could it be confused as a DEI office?
Senator, in the context of this bill, we're talking about agency operations, employment, the way employees are treated. Are you talking about contracting?
Because these offices and agencies exclusively promotes policies and procedures implemented in reference to race, sex, they would therefore be a DEI office. Isn't that correct?
Senator, if you're talking about...
Could they be construed as a DEI office? Because they're doing the same thing.
So nothing in this bill goes to those statutes, and those statutes are still in place. Now, there may be... You're right. Let me answer. There may be other legislation...
I agree with you. There's nothing in this bill.
There may be
no argument.
There may be other legislation other than this bill that addresses them.
You get no argument out of it.
Not this bill.
I'm not going to argue that fact. But would you agree with me that there's nothing in this bill that protects those hub offices, those hub contractors?
This bill does not speak to...
We talked about it earlier.
This bill does not speak to those either way.
Okay, you're right. So it doesn't say anything about them.
That's right.
And keeping them.
That's right.
Or getting rid of them. But it doesn't say anything about protecting them either, does it?
And it doesn't repeal the statutes that provide for them.
But
they're separate in the code.
The bill is written so vague and so broad that these hub contracts and the hub system that we're used to working under is in jeopardy. We had that agreement. We talked about that on yesterday.
You
didn't do anything.
You shared your
didn't say
concern.
anything about the hubs.
Right.
But you didn't do anything to protect them either. And it's written so broadly that one can concur that maybe he meant to get rid of the hub offices. Well, but you didn't mean to do that, right? That was not your intent on this bill.
This bill does not make a statement one way or the other on the hub program. Either way.
But it's written, I agree with you, you get no argument out of that, Brother Hughes, okay? But it's written so that our hub systems can be mistaken for a DEI. Because they're similar.
Well, if the other statutes
so we don't have to keep going back and forth. We don't have to keep going back and forth. And you're telling the body that you had no intent. There's no intent of doing away with hubs. Are you comfortable with the fact that this bill has written may harm hub programs throughout the state? It's possible. Would you agree?
Senator,
is it possible?
Senator, this bill does not speak to those either way.
Possible.
It does not speak to those either way.
It could go either way. Okay, so that it doesn't go the way that we get rid of hubs, would you be willing to take an amendment clarifying that this definition does not apply to the office and the programs within the agency and the political subdivisions that are tied to our existing statute? Simple amendment. All it does, you didn't make it clear one way or the other, but you are saying this bill is not to do away with our hubs.